If you woke up being hunted by wave after wave of flashy killers hunting you and your friends for sport, what would you do? A group of nomadic carnies is headed west, and they're ambushed and forced into a game where the prize is their own life. If they can go 12 hours without a group of clown killers pulling their intestines out like a rope of scarves, I'm going to break down the mistakes made, what you should do, and how to beat the heads in 31. Nerds, we have a strong start on our hands, and I must say, it's downright classy. The Prince of Horror Richard Brake, who's graced this hallowed channel before in The Dare, appears out of the subterranean gloom to address us directly, before sending us to hell to meet our maker. Without blinking, he informs us that his name is Doomhead. His derangement is artistry, and that although the circus is only as good as its clown,
I ain't no fucking clown. I'm not here to make you happy. I am here to end your life.
he winds up like Jackson Pollock with his paintbrush and splatters a pastor's innards all over the floor. It's Halloween 1976. A hippie wagon full of carnies rolls down Route 66 on the way to their next circus. They stop for gas in the sphincter of the desert, where Charlie nearly gyrates a hillbilly into a heart attack, and Roscoe encounters a local gal named Sexhead. Side note, if you watch the movie, you're in for a hell of a surprise. This gal voiced Tommy Pickles in the Rugrats, and her voice is disturbingly recognizable. Sexhead flirts with Roscoe, lubing up his defenses, before casually asking if he's a hunter and whether there's any weapons on board. Trying to play it cool, he tells her the only weapons they have are the ones in their pants, and an old busted shotgun they use as a window stop. It doesn't strike him as weird when she makes excuses and leaves a second later. The group continues into the desert, oblivious to the madness stalking their every step, until they find the road blocked by giant scarecrows. Roscoe, a girl named Snoopy, and a guy named Panda get out to clear the road when they're suddenly surrounded and attacked. Yeah, rolling up on this means a quick turnaround and back down the road we go. As someone who has nearly been ambushed before in the dead of night by costumed people with wicked intent, I wouldn't have gotten out of the car at all. But that's because my reflexes and survival instincts are intact. Once outside, with zero warning, no weapons, and blasted out of their minds on green smoke, their only hope was abandoning Snoopy and getting back to that bus. Once the creeps grabbed Roscoe and Panda, locking the bus door and reversing back down the road would have bought Charlie and the others the time they needed to either charge the group that has their friends or abandon them. These killers attacked as a group for a reason, to overwhelm us and overpower our sense of self-preservation. One or two attackers and we might think we have a chance, but against 20, not so much. They're betting on us genuinely blanking on what to do, which means distance from the conflict is our greatest immediate ally. In the aftermath, Charlie, Panda, Roscoe, and two others, Venus and Levon, are the only survivors. They're brought to an opulent theater where Father Murder, Sister Dragon, and Sister Serpent read them their rights. They tell the group they've been chosen to play the game 31. They'll have to survive 12 hours inside of a private of the Head Zone making, where they will be hunted for sport by those weirdos who make Halloween their entire personality. The prissy threesome reads the carnies the odds of their survival, suggesting an unseen audience is betting on who will last the night. The men get odds of 50, 60, or 100 to 1, while both women get 500 to 1, which tells me these foppish game makers aren't paying attention to their own genre. Blondie's definitely our final girl, and her odds should be way higher. Father Murder introduces them to their first hunter, Sickhead, a Spanish warrior of short stature who's embraced the costume of a group that would have executed him all of 80 years ago. Our five are knocked out and bagged and scattered around a massive industrial factory. They each wake beside a random weapon. Venus, a table leg. Panda, a pipe. Levon, a knife. Roscoe, a crowbar. Charlie's nowhere to be found as Sickhead stalks Venus. Roscoe and Panda run into each other together and enter a shrine to World War II's biggest asshole. To either side, they find women have been sliced to death and had their eyes gouged out. Roscoe bursts out laughing, just relieved not to find Charlie. I feel like the severity of this moment hasn't really sunk in yet. Bro, shut up. This is a stealth game. Nearby, a short rabbit taunts Levon.
I'm gonna put this knife so far.
Eso me gusta.
Now you're talking to me, baby. That I like, okay? Keep it coming.
Rule number 1 to escaping the twisted fantasy of somebody else. No taunting, just f***ing attack. There was a split second there when he dipped his head to take off that stupid mask and couldn't see what we were doing. Grab his hair, yank him closer, and plunge that knife right into his head. Instead, they bark at each other for a while before Sickhead wanders off. We finally see Charlie again, wielding a bat and hiding in a toilet, doubling as a scrapbook. Sickhead enters, singing that he's going to smash her head open. He stalks from stall to stall before jump scaring her, like he knew exactly where to find her.
Soy el dolor, pendeja.
If it's me, once I survive this encounter, I'm scouring the ceiling and room corners for cameras or high vantage points. Knowing whether or not he's being fed information about our locations will change our strategy. He rolls by again, taunting her as she waits with the bat poised. But when the door opens, Levon is there. They're happy to have found each other for about half a second, until Sickhead springs out of nowhere and knifes Levon in the back. Rule number 2, double tap, always. Instead of turning his head into Play-Doh, Charlie runs to Levon to help stop the bleeding, giving Sickhead time to recover. But we're not giving him that chance. He just stabbed our friend repeatedly. I say we match stab for swing, stopping only when we've reduced that little clown head of his to pulp on the bathroom floor. But it's too late for that now. He corrals Charlie out of the room. She thinks she has the upper hand, poking fun and provoking him in Spanish, but Sickhead knows this building better than she does. When he has her where he wants her, he simply closes and locks the gate from earlier, so she can't save Levon. Never would have happened with the double tap. That's all I'm saying. Sickhead returns for Levon. His arm dangles useless at his side, and he didn't even try to recover his knife while the dickhead was gone. With no fight left in him, he tells Sickhead to just get it over with already, and he does. Charlie finds a storage room and hides inside a metal locker as Sickhead arrives. He rattles her cage, toying with her as he kicks in the door. He yanks the bat right out of her hands and begins dragging her out when someone hits him from behind. Well, at least she learned a valuable lesson. Fear is the mind killer, as well as the body killer if you don't hold on to your weapon. The entire gang reunites with Levon, who was left to bleed out in the bathroom. Maybe it's too soon, but which one of you is calling dibs on Levon's knife? Don't forget the little Fuhrer's knives too. The group leaves Levon behind and wanders the facility. An hour passes before they reach another room, laid out like a hot goth girlfriend's Mad Hatter tea party. Hungry and exhausted, they argue about whether it's safe to eat. Venus says it is, because watching them die of rat poisoning would spoil their game. She's probably right, but that is a huge risk to take. It's not like death by poisoning is peaceful. Panda's the first to crack, saying they need the strength for the fight. Roscoe digs in too, until Charlie notices something under the tablecloth.
Stop eating.
Father Murder calls out over the comms, saying he hoped they enjoyed their protein-rich meal. It's so fresh, it's practically halal. Although probably contaminated with dirty bathroom juices too. He then tells them their new odds. Everyone's improved marginally, with Venus now down to 300 to 1, while Charlie is 400 to 1. Giving Charlie low odds I get. She's a little lamb in plot armor. But Venus staked Sickhead with a dirty screw, and she's the only one of these guys who's killed yet. Nearby, chainsaws begin to scream. Father Murder introduces our carnies to their next hunters, Psycho Head and Schizo Head, inbred brothers from the same sister mother. They brag that they prefer violence. They get pretty colorful with what they're gonna do to Charlie and Venus before they just fuck off to who knows where. There's a lot of theatrics going on, which is honestly probably one of the easiest ways to screw with these people. Don't continue forward down their twisted maze of weird haunted house bullshit. They want us to come to them, to fall into their fantasies. I say we double back to the boring, gross bathroom, force them out of their comfort zones into one we already know, and can arrange to suit our death funnel. Nothing would piss them off more, and I say good. Disoriented, emotional enemies make mistakes. While we're between waves, the other thing we need to do is buddy up. We need to be in pairs so that in any attack, we can coordinate responses. We can have one person run distraction while another incapacitates. And we need to verbally decide our roles with each other so we can improvise around one another in any scenario. What this will do is remove doubt and confusion in most attacks. If the entire group is attacked at once, we protect our singular buddy and our buddy protects us. So we're not splitting our focus. If we're attacked as pairs, then we know who to turn to initially for help. And we can then help the other pair once we've ended our own conflict. The gang reaches the Wet Kitty, the brothers' torture dungeon, where they find a strange doll tied to the floor with piano wire. It suddenly moves. Panda whips away at the deflated doll to reveal a tortured woman named Little George, the wife of the pastor Doomhead butchered in the beginning. She begs for their help, but everyone except Venus thinks it's a terrible idea. They reckon she's probably one of them. Venus has to talk Roscoe down from killing her. They hear the chainsaws revving. Panda rips a pipe off the wall to barricade the door they entered through, but a cage door at the other end of the room slams down, trapping everyone. Roscoe screams that he was right. The girl was in on it and has helped to lock them in. Just as the other brother emerges from the hay in the circus tent and slices Little George in half. Just scratch that off as a, my bad, Roscoe. You couldn't have known. But work on your reflexes, people. If he has his chainsaw buried in Little George, he can't bury it in you. Use these seconds wisely. Attack. Strike while he's occupied, before he can pull the chainsaw out again. The brothers have split the group in half to their own benefit, although a chainsaw will always do higher damage than a smattering of makeshift weapons. To even our odds, we need to trip them. Don't engage directly. One buddy should be drawing his full attention, staying just out of reach, dancing with him, while the other looks for something to put behind him on the floor. Once it's in place, the partner running distraction can switch from defensive to offensive and lead him backward into the trip hazard. If he drops the chainsaw when he falls, great. Move it away from him and beat him to death immediately. If he still has the chainsaw, aim for his head and arms until he drops it or he's out. This is kind of what happens. It's just super messy. While Roscoe's keeping the chainsaw back with his crowbar, Venus just sort of stands there for a few seconds as the clown tears a hole in Roscoe with his teeth. Attack now! Oh, come on! Instead, he slices into Roscoe's arm. Venus gets one hard swing with a nail in the table leg against the clown's back, at which point he pulls her into a headlock. Then, Roscoe swings with the crowbar, taking them both off their feet. Venus is lucky the dude lands on his own chainsaw underneath her. That could have gone so differently. Outside the cage, Panda's left fending off the chainsaw with his pipe, but Charlie's swinging too. This seems like it's keeping him trapped in a quasi-limbo, but really, it just turns his personal space into a cyclone of blades, so neither can reach him to end the fight. It's Charlie who gets kicked and falls backward, saved only because the clown wants to keep her alive, and Panda gets his abdomen chewed up in the process. Ultimately, it's only because Venus and Roscoe kill his brother that this one gets distracted long enough for Panda to strike and knock the chainsaw out of his hand. This would have gone smoother if they had kicked any of these random objects into the clown's leg from behind and beat him into extinction. When Panda finally has the guy on his knees, he begs, saying they're just pawns like them, forced to play the game. It doesn't inspire too much sympathy.
Okay, brother.
The doors roll open, and they leave with a new chainsaw weapon. Roscoe's pretty torn up, his arm turned into ground beef.
Looks pretty bad.
Yeah, feels pretty bad.
Charlie ties what looks like a handkerchief around his arm tightly, which is not a tourniquet, so he can probably look forward to bleeding out slowly, his extremities starting to go numb, his body shivering with hemorrhagic shock, getting more and more tired as the life drains away from him. You'll get to enjoy all that as oxygen stops reaching your brain and the world goes helter-skelter with dizziness. Father Murder gives Roscoe new 1,000,000-to-1 odds with his arm janked to hell, before announcing the arrival of their next hunters. 2 German trash Barbies. One of them is Sexhead from earlier, the other is called Deathhead. He's got a club and stands about 45 feet tall, while she comes wrapped in chains, which I think is a gift for us. The carnies leave Roscoe hidden and strategize for about 5 seconds. Panda tells the women to create a distraction so he can attack from behind. Decent idea. How about a better one? Instead of just sitting in this random room for the last however long you were here, you could have been using what you found in the twins' freaky circus tent to lay down a few defensive tripwires at ankle level. Sure, they're watching you, which is cheating, but we can't do anything about it. But tripwires don't really care if you're watching. Even if they step over them as they enter, they have to remember they're there to leave, and you can push them back over those wires if you need to. Also, what happened to the chainsaw? That'd make for a pretty great sound trap to lure them into a place you want them to go. The distraction is meh. The girls poke at him from behind a metal grate, but Sexhead calls out a warning to Death before Panda can hit him with the pipe. Why would you pick a blunt pipe when you have a crowbar, which can impale as well as whack? Death gets Panda on the ropes, and the chainsaw finally comes out. As Venus and Charlie come to the awkward rescue, Roscoe hears the commotion and refuses to sit still. He feebly limps down a random hallway toward the noise. Sure, just to become a liability to your friends. That's exactly what they need. The doll attacks from behind.
Hey!
Look, I can't show you much of this fight because the whites are strobing so much it's tough to see anything. Tommy Pickles eventually stabs Roscoe, but Charlie pulls her away. Downstairs, Panda's putting up a great fight until the giant overwhelms him. He swings an overhead fake out with his club, then spins again and hits Panda in the gut. And again, despite having the chainsaw in her stupid hands and Death being completely distracted, Venus doesn't swing in from behind and obliterate his hamstrings. It's like these people think they lose cool points for attacking from behind. The chainsaw runs out of gas immediately after, of course, as Deathhead turns on her. Venus is saved as Charlie arrives with the chains around the doll's throat. Death immediately offers himself in exchange, which he can't possibly think will work. And Venus finally strikes from behind, knocking him to his knees with his own club.
You can't. Do it!
What the hell is all this I can't bullshit? I don't see you looking for rope to tie him up. What's the other option here? Enlighten me. What? It's okay to kill a guy to save Charlie, but not okay to kill a guy who just gutted Panda? Also, no joke, just imagine little Tommy Pickles screaming bloody murder before having his throat slit. And that's about what this scene sounds like. Father Murder, Sister Dragon, and Sister Serpent discuss their dilemma. Apparently, Death was their closer, and with him gone, they'll have to call in a pinch hitter. Are you kidding me? Tinkerbell was your main guy? He folded like a lawn chair, and you sent him in with his Achilles heel exposed. You're all amateurs. Of course, they call in Doomhead, but it takes him 90 minutes to get there. What are our survivors doing? Just chilling. It's not like we could be looking for a way out or setting traps or anything. Seriously though, rule number 3, don't waste time. Any downtime is a chance to reinforce, barricade, escape, etc. You people have left several knives behind instead of tucking them away for close quarter combat. You've left Death's super useful bludgeoner behind. This leaving weapons behind thing is becoming a huge, unfathomable problem. The second chainsaw back in the circus tent had a broken chain, but it probably still has gas. Go get it, and then fill up the working one you have. If nothing else, double back to the bathroom. Look at all those windows you could reach and break in 90 minutes. Doomhead has his own utility room packed with goodies, and he's so confident about his ability to kill them all before the time runs out that he spares a few minutes for his Joker audition. Then he kicks his own ass to complete the look. Venus wakes up from a bad dream because they got comfortable enough to sleep in here. Wow. To find that Charlie has wandered off to look for something. Venus gets up to go after her, but somehow gets separated from Roscoe in seconds. Suddenly, the door rolls shut, cutting off any possible escape. This is what not wasting time looks like. Simple, professional. Roscoe and Charlie find Venus strung up like a half Jesus, as Doom appears to tell them, with only 3 hours left of their original 12, the door's been opened to the factory grounds, and they can wander outside. They stumble around until they realize there's a chain-linked fence. Due to his injuries, Roscoe decides this is the end for him. They don't even bother trying to walk the fence line to see if they can find a gate or another exit, or things like this that they could use to hop up and over. Grab literally anything movable, stack it up, step over, and slowly work your way down. You know, I bet a refueled chainsaw would have come in handy about now too. That chain link fence would destroy the blade, but it would last long enough to slice a hole for Roscoe through it. Or, you know, climb up on the catwalk right above your stupid head and look for a rope or emergency hose to climb down on the other side. Instead, they open a utility shaft and he bullies Charlie into leaving him behind. Alright, if you insist. Ever the professional, Doomhead again wastes little time finishing Roscoe off. Underground, Charlie actually reaches the outside world, crawling into a drainage tunnel before emerging into the desert. She limps to a house with its door standing wide open. Never a great sign, and just walks right in. For some cosmically bizarre reason, she turns the corner and there's an automatic puppet show playing. And then she drops her weapon, just to make it absolutely clear the only thing keeping her alive is plot armor. And in the end, it is plot armor. Plot armor alone that saves her. Doom appears behind her and knocks her out with a single punch. He begins to choke her, then pulls out his knife to give her the old Whitechapel treatment when the buzzer sounds in the distance, signaling the end of the game. As the rich pricks betting on the whole game leave to return to their lives, I have to take back my compliment about Doomhead's professionalism. He turns out to be a sore loser in the end, as he follows Charlie down the road, and the movie leaves us standing there, wondering if Charlie survived. Obviously, she didn't. I might have wondered a little more if she had managed to hold on to a single weapon at any point in this movie. She was saved at almost every turn by someone else. So, sorry, the rest of you lost your lives for nothing. If they had buddied up, attacked quicker, and used their downtime to look for a exit, they would have all escaped way before Doom was even called in. This factory is massive, and at multiple points, we saw high catwalks, ladders, ropes, chains, and mystery containers. We barely saw them explore any of that shit, but you and I would be up and searching for a way out every single minute between rounds. The problem is that the game doesn't end just because you go outside. So, run out the clock. Play against their fantasies whenever possible. Use traps and lures. Attack from behind and double tap immediately. For those reasons, I think 31 was beaten. Moral of the story, hold on to your weapon.